This meeting of the ISD Board of Education special meeting for work session is called to order. Welcome everyone. I appreciate you taking time out this evening to join us. The first item of business is to approve the agenda. I'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to move to amend the agenda to move item number 1 to the end of the agenda to allow more time to discuss the superintendent search firms. If there's not enough time, we can always add that AMI presentation to the open session agenda.
Okay, a motion has been made to amend the agenda to make the AMI presentation at the end. Is there any discussion? Oh, we need a second. Thank you. Any discussion? Did you hear that? Randy seconded it. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion carries. So the first thing that we're going to be talking tonight, and we're going to kind of take this down a notch. This is kind of an informal meeting, like we are doing a work session this evening. So I can kind of start us out by just kind of setting the tone. We, as a board, decided to reach out to several search firms to help us to obtain a superintendent, and there were some that were recommended to us by legal counsel, and then there were some that reached out to us, and then a few more that we were like, oh, this firm has worked with other districts in the area, so we've reached out to a few more. So from that, we got some interest, and I asked Lance if he, or Dr. Stout, I apologize, if he would be willing to help us to get proposals for those interested in working with us, and I think I can turn this over to you to kind of give us more information.
Thank you, Ms. Dixon. I appreciate it. Good evening, board members. As Mrs. Dixon just described, she had reached out to me, I think it was on Friday, June 13th. I know that in my visits with Carrie prior to this last board meeting, she was up to her neck in camp and all of the things that she and her husband and her family's involved with, and she just simply said, you know, Lance, would you be willing to kind of help me coordinate and gather and correspond and reach out? And I said, whatever you need me to do, I'm happy to do. So with that being said, I came into work on Monday, June 16th, and typically during the summer we work Tuesdays through Friday, so I actually got a hold of Dr. Earl, said, do you mind if I flip a Monday and a Friday? And he said, absolutely, Lance. And that gave me some peace and quiet, which I greatly appreciated. And so I went through all of the emails Mrs. Dixon had sent me, which were a lot, and a lot of them were duplicates or asking little simple follow-up questions. So I spent the better part of that entire day just reaching out to different folks, email correspondence, but, and I guess I'll just make sure I'm up front with all of you. I know selfishly on my timeline, I was headed out of town for a couple of weeks on vacation, which was after Project Shine on the 21st of June. So when I was reaching out to those folks on that Monday prior, I said, could we please get a proposal, if at all possible, by the 20th, which was that Friday. So that Friday came, we had 4 proposals that you have in front of you, and that I had received, and I visited with Carrie. I think it was on Friday afternoon. We went through those real quickly, and I also had reached out to Dwayne Martin and asked for his assistance to just give us a scoring rubric, if he would. And I will say this, usually when I work with RFPs and evaluating RFPs, if I have it like yearbooks, for example, or something with construction, if we haven't done that process before, he's always been a tremendous resource. So in this case, I reached out to him. I've never been in this capacity looking for a superintendent search firm, and Dwayne said, sure. So within that week, he also sent that, and I believe that Carrie sent that out to all of you as well, along with the proposals that we have received. So that brings us to this morning, on my schedule anyway, and then I got to work, and I had going through a lot of mail and email, as you can imagine, after being out for the last 2 weeks. And one of the letters that I received was from one or two firms that I had reached out to previously, And they said, hey, can we submit a proposal? And I simply said, that will be fine if I can get it by noon. So I think all of you have received that this afternoon as well. I apologize for the short turnaround, but it's due in part to the fact that I just received that first thing this morning. And I believe that came from McPherson and Jacobson. So just a quick review. The 4 proposals that you have in hand are from School Exec Connect out of Oak Park, Illinois. And Kevin O'Mara has been my contact there. MSBA, Dr. Coward and Linda Quinley are the contacts, and I've had more discussions via email with Linda Quinley than Dr. Coward. The Zeal Education Group was, my contact's been Dr. Jeff Melendez. He's the founder and CEO. They're out of Wilmington, Delaware. And EGL they serve primarily Missouri school districts, and Dr. Jim Henson has been my contact with that firm. So we have the 4 that you have, the 1 that you received this afternoon, totaling 5. And basically, that's been my involvement. As I told President Dixon, I'm happy to assist in any way, shape, or form, but if I'm out of bounds, I apologize, but I know this is the work of the board, and I am happy to coordinate or call people back or email people, or if you need something else, please let me know, and we'll do our best to provide that to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Stout. Can you clarify, just for us and everybody watching and listening in, what exactly was sent to the firms to ask for that? Was it, because I know we didn't do like a formal RFP process.
No,
so what
we
was
didn't.
sent?
Actually, I believe Carrie might be able to address that. I think she had sent out an initial email to several different folks after the board had met at the previous Board of Education meeting. So when I took it over, it was basically, I was sifting through emails that she had sent to
Okay, so
me.
you were just compiling.
And I just took all of
Then
those.
can you clarify what was sent?
Yeah, I sent them a letter under our direction indicating that we were looking for a superintendent search firm and wanted to give them an opportunity to send us a proposal. Obviously, that proposal is something that they chose to send us. However, at the point that I exited out, I had reached out to them and heard back from some of them saying they were interested, but I hadn't received any proposals at that point.
So it wasn't like we were asking for A, B, C, D. It was just sent as a proposal.
Yeah, I mean, I do feel like this is something that these search firms do. They have an awareness of what school districts are looking for, and so it does seem like they are all sending us a proposal that they potentially are sending to other school districts as well.
Okay, so I just want to clarify that an RFP wasn't sent.
A request for proposal was sent.
Oh, it wasn't.
Yes. It was sent to all of these firms. In fact, all that we have, in addition to 2 more, were sent a request to submit a proposal. Any other discussion before we move on? Okay, so you all have a rubric that was recommended to us. I know Denise, you might want to talk into some additional things that you found helpful when you were looking through things. I know several board members actually took your requests or your recommendations and actually filled those out as well. We'll just open it up to the board for them to begin speaking.
Yeah, I would just comment that I thought the rubric was a great starting place. It definitely helped me to kind of think through some things. I did add a few items, and I did go ahead and email that out in case any of those items might be helpful to any of the other board members. Some of the other things that I was particularly interested in was the length of time that each firm had been in operation, how diverse the team was as far as gender, age, racial. Wanted to make sure that how much diversity there was on the team. Wanted to see what kind of timeline they had. Some of them were much more specific about when they were going to do things, and others were, we will develop a timeline, so I just wanted to kind of weigh that in. Follow-up after hire, wanted to kind of look at that. Wanted to see what kind of nationwide reach each firm had, and then wanted to look at it. On each of these firms, did they have a vested interest in the success of our district in particular? So that's just some of the things that I added. Like I said, it was a starting place. I'm sure everybody, as they were doing their review, probably had things that pop out to them, but those were the ones that just, popped out to me.
Denise, I appreciate you sharing those aspects because something that didn't stand out to me was the ones that had provided a timeline for us. Because I just maybe think about the different aspects to consider. I feel like we need to have a little bit of luxury of time where, if a firm was being asked for this in January, obviously that would be different, and they should be able to say, like, this a typical timeline for kind of period. So I appreciate that.
Were folks in the audience able to hear that? Do we need a mic for the computer? Yes, you were able to hear it? Okay.
Todd, can you help us out with that?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, why don't we?
You need a microphone? Okay.
I feel like it'd be better if we just got a microphone for it. We can continue our discussion.
I also had one question.
Brandy, can you hold off on your questions so that we can wait until you get a microphone? Anyone else?
I will just say just one brief comment before we really get started. We had a wide range, I thought, from, a couple of Missouri firms to a Midwest to a little further Midwest to an East Coast. And so I was appreciative of the, various locations.
I appreciated the references that we were looking at. Some of them, I felt like, when you do a superintendent search, you're not necessarily doing this. We're not seeing it regularly. I don't think that school districts go through this kind of stuff all the time. So kind of having an awareness of when our firms had been working with other districts, some of them more recent and some of them farther out. So.
I think you have a microphone now, Brandy.
Yeah, Brandy, if you want to.
Oh, perfect. Great. Piggybacking onto your comment, Carrie, I think it was Zeal that didn't have references, and I just kind of didn't consider them after that. So I did think it was important, and I liked the ones that listed like their district population and when they did their search. So I thought that was good information to have, but I also sent an email to any of the references that were provided, so I have some feedback on a few of them because of that. And I also just wanted to clarify, so are we, in our role tonight, trying to narrow down to see who we want to invite to present to us, or what is our final goal?
I think that's up to the board. Obviously, we have had, put out feelers for a good solid month, and these, I think, are the candidates that are interested in and have submitted proposals to us. I think that we as a team need to decide if we're ready to make a decision or if we want to do more.
I think it would be very helpful if we could have an in-person presentation from maybe 2 or possibly 3, depending on kind of where we're all standing as far as what we liked and didn't like. But I think sometimes being able to have a face and being able to ask live questions can help us maybe make our final decision. And I would piggyback also on Director Puente made the comment that Zeal did not provide references. I did not see references on MSBA either. And so I think if either one of those two,
MSBA had references.
I did not
Yeah, MSBA did.
see that. That's the people who are,
As our superintendent search references.
right, but I wanted to see where they've done a search, like what district.
Yeah, that's what they're saying. These are the presidents of the board where they have done searches.
Gotcha. I thought that those were part of the team, so I misunderstood that. So I appreciate you pointing that out.
Okay, one of the things I would say is I'm recognizing in these proposals that expenses are not necessarily covered. And so I would say in my peace of mind, I feel like if we are going to have people travel to us to interview, quote unquote, I think that we should narrow it down to 2. I think that 3 potentially is a waste of district funds.
If they're coming to give a proposal, I'm not sure that we would be on the hook for that.
Right?
They're trying to garner business. I mean, we could also offer video interviews too if it was.
We could, yeah. I just am saying I don't think that I would feel comfortable with having an expense to bring in 3. I think that we could narrow it to 2.
At this point, we don't actually know if there is an expense, we're just being cautious.
Yes.
Right.
It might be something where if we kind of maybe did a poll of how many are you would like to talk to, if it turns out that most of us are down to 2, good point. If there's several of us that are at 3, maybe we could ask them what the cost would be to come in.
That's very fair. It's definitely a team decision.
I have a feeling that Director Baird is probably correct, that I would imagine on the proposal end, probably not a cost for that, because they want to get the business. I think after that, then I think they're going to charge us for expenses, but it's a good question, I think.
How do we want to go through? Do we want to go through each company and just make comments, remarks on that, or overall?
Yeah, I would say that late in the day, we sent a rubric out to all of you late in the day. There were board members that sent information saying that they are not comfortable with using the rubric. Unfortunately, at this late hour, I am kind of at the understanding of whatever you guys want to do, you get to do. So if you want to use the rubric, it is there, it is available to us, it is a great tool. Our district uses a rubric in lots of contract issues, and so if we choose not to use it, it is at the board's discretion.
I did use it and felt like it was very useful, and I too appreciate yours, Denise. I added that to that, so I have scores, for the original part of the rubric and then yours. I added them together or could leave them separate, so I don't know the best way to do this if not everyone has that ready, if we just visit about what firms we like, or I'm not sure.
And sorry. I was one of the ones not comfortable using the rubric because I didn't feel like everybody was given a formal request for proposal. They just sent what they thought we might want to hear. And so there were some specific questions that they didn't answer. As I was filling out the rubric, I gave lots of zeros or non-applicables, and it just didn't feel fair. However, I do have the firms that whose proposals I liked the best, and I'm willing to speak to those. I just made a little pros and cons list of the things that stood out to me. So it could be appropriate just to give since this isn't the formal, this is who we're selecting, these are just our top candidates, I think it would be appropriate to just all share who we think might be the best choice to at least come back.
Could we maybe start off with just going around and saying the top 3 and see what kind of consensus we have? Would anybody feel comfortable with that?
That sounds good.
The reason why I said 3 was that way we hopefully see if we can find some consensus to maybe 2.
I think that's fine.
Vice President?
I was really ready to speak to one, to be honest, the one that I liked the most. But sure, I did do the rubric, so my number one pick was going to be MSBA. And some of the notes that I have here, there's strong emphasis on local alignment, district values, and culture, and they clearly understand Missouri districts. So that was one of the things that led out. My number two would be School Exec Connect, and I wasn't really enthused. I did hear your wonderful elaboration, Dr. Stout, about the last one that came in, and actually I want to refer to my email to get their name right, because I have not had a chance to review theirs. Thank you. I'd like to look over this one, so very well could be my third because the other ones did not. Okay.
Fair. I'll go next. MSBA came out on top for me, School Exec Connect, and then the McPherson Jacobson came out third. Oh, I'm sorry. That's actually incorrect. School Exec Connect came out third. McPherson. MSCA. Thank you, I'm sorry.
I can go next if,
Okay.
I would say my number one choice would be McPherson and Jacobson, and number two, MSBA. I would have said School Exec Connect was my next option. However, in some feedback that I received from their references listed, this was a district that is comparable in size to us in our state, and they would not recommend.
Brandy, I also heard that same feedback.
Okay.
Ready for me?
I had the same as Director Puente. I had M&J 1, MSBA 2, and SEC 3. My biggest issue is with SEC was the cost.
Yeah, I had MSBA as number one, and one of the things I liked about them was that they said that they could provide translation language if we had stakeholders that didn't speak English, that they could provide that translation, and that they would help organize focus groups. And I kind of like their candidate tiering model. And then thirdly, with MSBA, I just like the past experiences that we've had with MSBA. I've never had a bad experience with MSBA. So I guess it's kind of like with Missouri, kind of dance with one wrong you type thing. I mean, it makes me feel good that they know our state, they know our district, that sort of thing. Number two, which maybe nobody else had, was EGL. And I reached out to the president of the board of the Troy School District. I didn't really ask how big Troy was, but I know the president of the board very, very well. I've known him for many years, and I have a trust level with him, and he was very complimentary. He said they'd use them again. So I put them as number two. And number three, I put School Exec Connect.
My first choice was McPherson and Jacobson. Their price was a little bit higher than everybody else, but one of the things I really loved is the reference checks deep dive. So they not only call references, they ask the reference for someone else who can support what they're saying, and then they ask the second person that they talk to for another person who can support what they're saying, because they're looking for themes to ensure accuracy, and it's not just your best friend giving you a good reference, so they definitely go in there. I also like the video interviews. I loved how much they talked about stakeholder groups for interviews and the community engagement. I think that is so important. I also really liked who they have involved with Dr. Watkins, who is well respected in our district, and also Dr. David Buck out of Lee Summit, because those would be our consultants. So that was my number 1. My number 2 was MSBA. I think we can all agree that nobody knows Missouri school boards better than MSBA. I liked, again, there was a local connection. The Park Hill superintendent, former Park Hill superintendent, was one of the ones who would be helping with it. Also the post-hire support and the guarantees, although others had guarantees as well. One thing that I didn't like about MSBA, oh, and let me go back, sorry. One thing I didn't like about the McPherson and Jacobson is that we were unable to call their references because we got it so late, and also the cost. But one of the cons with MSBA is that it felt like a Missouri focus. I hope that we would be able to explore bigger than just Missouri when we're looking for our next superintendent. There's not a bad thing to hire somebody from Missouri. Obviously, they know Missouri legislature and funding and all of those fun things, and DESE. However, it might not be a bad thing to get out of Missouri. There's only so many school districts within Missouri. And their calendar feels kind of late. I noticed that a mid-January hire felt a little late to me, and for them to include that felt a little off. For my third, I didn't have a third because I really don't like the other 3. But if I had to pick one, I would probably say Zeal. They're out of Delaware, so it would be a nationwide search, and I really loved the diversity mentioned and the 12 months of executive coaching. But yeah, that was one of the ones that didn't have the references, correct? Is that one? So yeah, if I had to pick a third, but I don't want to.
Great. So my first one was MSBA, and they've been doing this since 1984. They also said that we would be a focus. They're not doing any currently, so we would be a focus. I did see that on page 7 of theirs, they noted that they would have postings nationally and in Missouri. So they do have that ability to go nationwide. I also it looked like they would provide us kind of a one-page candidate summary report. That's appealing. And so yeah, MSBA was number 1. I liked their price. I also liked their follow-up. Their after-hire follow-up was excellent and didn't seem to be an extra cost to that. So MSBA was number 1. Let's see, School Exec Connect was going to be my second one until we received McPherson today. And they were great too. They have a broad network of people to go nationwide. Their cost did seem very concierge, so it seemed like the cost could go up and up depending on what we did outside of their base package. Let's see, 2 to 3 months start to finish. I also like that Dr. Watkins is part of their team. And so anyway, McPherson Jacobson would be my second choice.
I would like to go ahead and rearrange my choices to, after reading through very quickly, but quite impressive to hear what you were sharing just a moment ago. So I'm going to say McPherson and Jacobson, number 1, number 2, MSBA, and then number 3 would be School Exec Connect. Thank you, Dr. Scott.
I did like that even though McPherson Jacobson is out of town, they are still Omaha, which has a Midwest feel to me.
Yeah. And one thing I did notice with McPherson and Jacobson, they did have a price match, and so I understand that they're a few $1,000s more than some of the others, but we may be able to negotiate that as if it is somewhere that we wanted to pursue.
Yeah, I was seeing that the price match is for similar services, so they did say, like, if you want them to create anything additional outside of this proposal, they're going to charge additional rates, and they did not show those rates. Some, but there were many that we would probably need to do that they did not show a rate. And so I just was a little bit concerned with, at the end of the day, how much are we spending to do the search? I do like, so I recognize that MSBA did say that they had a 30% rate of or national candidates coming into positions. So they're outside Missouri. Of their fill rate, I thought that they had great wraparound services. And I saw that McPherson Jacobson also had a little bit of wraparound, but it didn't seem as robust as what MSBA can offer. However, I could see that we are members of MSBA and we potentially could utilize them for some wraparound services even if we didn't use their firm for the search firm. I was a little caught off guard by McPherson and Jacobson submitting their proposal so late today. Like, I felt like they sent information, we actually, Dr. Stouts did actually go to their website, filled out a form saying we would really like for you to submit a proposal, all of that stuff, and we didn't hear anything about or from them until today. And that proposal that they, what time did you talk to them this morning?
I think initially, I don't remember, it was 8-something was my first correspondence.
And then by noon, they submitted a proposal. So it was kind of like you had it all there, but yet you didn't get this to us in a timely fashion. So it just felt a little askew. And I am a little bit concerned that, are we going to be their priority if that's the kind of pattern that we have already established with them? So that would be a hesitancy for McPherson and Jacobson.
I had one concern about McPherson. This isn't a knock on them because I have, Dr. Watkins, I used to work with him and I think very highly of Dr. Watkins. It has nothing to do with him. But out of all the states they listed their references, there's only 2 for Missouri. And one was a little tiny school district which has no relationship particularly to our, similar to ours. The other one was Lee Summit, obviously. So with just 2 school districts, I didn't know if they'd done other work and they just didn't list them. But they listed on the other states a lot of different school districts. So I was a little concerned about that.
It did seem like they listed everybody they've worked with for the last at least 5 years. And I did see that.
I tried to look at not just Missouri, but also any other Midwestern states that M&J worked with, just to make sure that they had other, like Nebraska, Arkansas, Kansas. So even though maybe it wasn't Missouri, they did have quite a few in the, heartland. It looks to me like if you even just look at just the 1 and 2s, M&J and MSBA are clearly preferred. So I would feel comfortable if we, visited with those 2. Does anybody feel uncomfortable with that?
I did just want to clarify, I'm looking at, they had 2 references, one from Lee Summit and then one from Gardner Edgerton in Kansas. So they're both Casey Metro. I think the list of everybody was just who they worked with, not necessarily, but they did have their references from Lee Summit, which we know well.
Well, I mentioned that.
Oh, okay, sorry.
It's very small. That was my only point. Not a knock against
Okay.
I did want to point out, first of all, Denise, I would be okay with that. Those basically were my 2 choices, so I think it would be great to hear from those 2 firms. But I really focused on community engagement that the firms were offering, and I loved the detail that they went into with McPherson and Jacobson, and just talked about how they will meet with groups identified by the board, as far as within the community, but then also central office administrators, building administrators, teachers, classified staff, students. And so they would also offer an online survey option. And then in meeting the candidates, they also stated that they would have a representative group of 8 to 12 people would be selected to represent each of those groups identified by us. And they would meet with a chairperson to discuss their roles and responsibilities, and said that these groups are twofold, like one, to promote the district and community to the candidate, but also form an impression of each candidate, and they would share that back with us. So I just really appreciated that detail, and then they go into the process for obtaining staff input as well, and then the process for obtaining parent and community input, and then also emphasized including ethnically diverse communities. And then at the district request, the online surveys would be provided in multiple languages as well. So I just really liked those options with McPherson and Jacobson. And then I also, they had a 2-year guarantee, and they also talked about following up for the first year as well, which I know MSBA had that too. Another thing that the references for MSBA mentioned were, first of all, there were several people that said they would go with them again, and they liked their tiering model and thought that was really efficient for the candidates. They tier them for you and say, you know, these are the things that we felt like these candidates had in common and things like that. That was in their packet. But just to know that people really appreciated that, and that helped them narrowing down their selection process. It was good information. I also liked that MSBA had in-person and survey options for the community engagement items. So the references also stated that the post-hire work with the first year of the superintendent's contract, that worked well too. So.
Use your microphone. Sorry. And Denise, I know you probably already have this. Can everybody hear me okay? I had the Mac and Jake, 1 or 2 was 4 for 1 and 2 for 2. So 6 of the 7 board members had them as 1 or 2. And then MSBA, 3 had them as number 1 and 4 as number 2. So all 7. So out of both of those, you pretty much got it covered with those 2. It sounds like to me, to affirm what Denise was already saying.
So, in the effort of getting us on with the business, it sounds like we are wanting to bring in those 2 firms to meet with us. Is anyone opposed to doing that in a work session next month?
Can I ask a question? Just because when you referenced earlier the timeliness of the last submission,
Yeah.
it kind of resonated with me, and I just noticed that you and I received a lot of communication from Zeal, and I just think it would just be a good idea for us to maybe agree on a third to have as a plan B, so that we just are already in place for that if necessary.
I would add to that too, is maybe if Dr. Stout, if you're going to contact them to set up them coming and speak with us, maybe ask them if there's a cost associated with that. And if there was, then like Anthony's Director Mundane was saying, you know, maybe add a third. If it's excessive, I mean, I don't know, though, we probably have to discuss that as a board.
I guess we could do a roll call to see who's interested in doing 3. I mean, what do you guys want to do?
I think 2 might be sufficient. We can always offer, I can't imagine anybody would charge us, but if they were, we could offer a video. It is the age of Zoom. We could do a video conference and just have them interview that way if they weren't comfortable making this. Well, Zeal's in Delaware, so yeah.
Right.
I would say this too, that of the other ones, SEC had several in the 3rd place. I mean, Zeal only came up 1 time in everybody, so probably a 3rd place probably wouldn't be Zeal anyway. But I'm comfortable with 2.
I feel like they were the top candidates for everybody. And so I don't know why we would bring the 3rd candidate in.
And it's there if we need it. Let's go back to it.
On the timing, is that going to jam us up too much to have it as a work session in August?
I don't think so.
You guys, I mean, I looked at the same literature you did. It looked like most of the timelines with the firms I saw was at least September-ish for starting in earnest. So I would think you'd be okay waiting till then. Your guess is called.
This is very selfish on my part because I'm not going to be here in August.
I don't think I could, I don't know that we can fit in a board meeting in between then. We've got our board retreats, we've got start of school, leadership retreat, the administration's coming back to school. We got a lot going on just to finish out this month. And
Well, and on MSBA's timeline, their first item is August 31st, and that's just finalize the job posting with the board. And I imagine that does not take weeks and weeks of work.
And I would be happy to ask if the board wants me to reach out to these two, if them coming and presenting to the board, whatever our first date is in September, if that would be doable, if there were any concerns, that if they would be okay with that, based on that input and feedback, we could certainly take a look at that if again, all of you are comfortable with that.
September instead of August? My understanding, are we not doing August?
I would feel bad if I held everybody back, but
It was just a suggestion.
You won't physically be here, does that also include virtual?
I will be in Iceland.
Rude.
I know, sorry. When we booked that, we
Probably didn't have this on your phone.
I'll send some notes.
No, I mean, I think you have a good point. I mean, your notes are amazing, so I think that would be great. I like August a lot.
okay. So we have a consensus that we're going to be bringing them in the August work session, and we have decided on the top two, which will be McPherson and MSBA.
Carrie, I want to let you know, I was just telling them earlier, I will attend, I'll be on virtual.
Okay.
I'll be in-
Okay. Thank you.
Love it.
So moving on to the next item, we have moved the the AMI presentation to the end of this meeting. I think right now the next item on the list is the Fairmount Elementary construction update.
Good evening. I just have some pictures to show you some updates from when it started. Can I stand back here? Can you guys hear me?
Fine.
I can't see. So this is just them putting in the foam base to the lightweight concrete that will go on the bottom floor to level out the stage all the way back to the back doors. This is after that lightweight concrete was poured. And this is the second floor deck before the concrete was poured. This is just them putting in the HVAC units. And then the framing going up and the MEP, the electrical. Sheetrock. You can see the beams that were brought in. And then this is the finish of the pillars downstairs in the basement, where we had to close down the kitchen. So all that work has been done, so they will start, that's a temporary wall that's up back there, that'll come down. And then they will put all the equipment back. Restroom, same thing, they tear all those out to do the pillars, to reinforce the floors above. It's all been put back together, cleaned up, painted, and this is one of the new classrooms. The windows are in, the brand new windows are in. You can see that the light fixtures aren't in yet, but pretty much everything is painted, and flooring will begin probably next week. You can see this is one of the other classrooms. The new windows look really good.
Yeah.
They'll have roller shades. This is another classroom as well. There are a few lights put in this one already, as well as all of the HVAC units are in place. And that's it. So that's kind of where we're at right now. We are on target to have everything in by August 1st. The furniture should be here by August 1st. Good. Any questions?
Sounds like a lot of moving moving of furniture.
That's the easy building.
I just have to say, oh, I'm sorry. No, if you have not been to Fairmount and to see the transformation just from that auditorium and now to these classrooms, it's phenomenal. And you just, thank you to your team and all the work that they've done in coordinating. So, thank you.
Newkirk and Novak have been easy to work with. They just take it to heart and do a great job. So they're easy to work with.
I have a question for
Yeah.
you. So it looks brand new. Are there any plans to add some character to match the rest of the building in any sort of way? With
Not in-
furniture or anything? I don't know.
Not in this phase, no.
Okay.
But I think when the whole school renovation, there would be some,
It'll match a little bit.
use some of the artifacts that we held back to kind of put
Okay.
throughout the building.
Okay, so then
Is the goal.
comes later. Okay.
I was going to ask, did they run on any, besides the artifacts we already have, graffiti or any interesting things that they turned over in the construction process?
Not at all,
Okay,
no.
just wondering.
And we only had a few minor hiccups here and there. Otherwise, having a 100-year-old building, it worked out pretty well. So, yeah. This is just the early phase of that.
Okay, well, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions, guys? Do you feel like we have enough time to do the EMI? Okay.
If I know those two presenters out there.
Okay, come on up. Thank you for your willingness to let us take care of that important matter.
I will, before we get started with the actual presentation, this presentation and this plan came after a work session, I believe it was April, is that correct, March, April, where we had agreed to, after 5 snow days, to then implement an AMI plan. This is something that is required by the state. There are 11 criteria that are required by the state that I will submit by July 31st, and it's kind of a select box type situation, so there's not a lot of leeway. So they will walk through this plan with all of you, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to present tonight. Mr. Latham and I will be sharing an overview of the Independent School District proposal to implement the alternative methods of instruction, commonly known as AMI, for the 25-26 school year. Our goal is to maintain learning continuity for students during the school closures while meeting state requirements. The objective of the presentation is walk you through the AMI plan that we're submitting to the state for approval. The purpose of AMI is to ensure that student learning continues uninterrupted when schools are closed due to inclement weather. This approach ensures that missed school days don't disrupt the academic calendar or delay instructional progress. The authority of AMI plans comes from section 171.33, Missouri Revised Statutes. The statute allows local education agencies, the LEAs like ISD, to apply for DESE to use AMI days instead of making up missed time. To qualify, the district must meet specific criteria set by DESE. That includes students must be actively engaged so the attendance can count towards state aid. Student work must be submitted when they return to school, and then teachers must be available and provide instruction during AMI days. On designated AMI days, our instructional focus will be on reviewing and reinforcing skills that have already been taught. This ensures that the content is accessible to all students. It does not introduce new material that could be missed or misunderstood without the face-to-face instruction. The approach supports retention while maintaining equity and learning access.
All right. Regarding the communication plan, we'll utilize a variety of platforms to communicate the purpose and expectations of the AMI days to our parents and students. Information will be posted on the district's website. It will be shared through emails, newsletters, and on Parent Square. We'll also use back-to-school nights and parent-teacher conferences as opportunities to partner with families and communicate our plan. Regarding instruction, on AMI days, instructional methods will include packet-based work at the elementary level. Packets will be created by the district and distributed at the end of quarters 1, 2, and 3. This will create continuity for each grade level throughout the district and ensure every student has access to the same content. Elementary students can choose to access instruction synchronously with their teachers at designated times or complete their packet work asynchronously and turn in the following school day. Secondary students will access instruction synchronously or asynchronously through their class Canvas page. Regarding access to instruction, elementary work will be packet-based. Secondary students will utilize their school-issued Chromebook. If families do not have access to the internet, our FSLs will partner with them to provide hotspots. For instructional support, elementary and secondary teachers will be available during AMI days to communicate and support students academically. There are scheduled class times and office hours for students to connect with their teachers. And finally, for attendance will be determined by students completing and submitting lessons and activities either on the AMI day or the next in-person day of attendance. We appreciate the opportunity to present this plan and would be happy to answer any questions.
Hi. On the attendance right here, if a student, like say, was sick on the AMI day and unable to complete it and then misses the next day of school, is it the next in-person day of attendance for that student or for the district?
I believe our plan is when the student returns to school,
Okay,
they would be
then it needs
expected
to
to
be
turn
complete.
in that work. Yep, great question.
Perfect. Thank you.
Question on the quarterly packets, I'm assuming that they would need to use the packet that is the most recent one. For example, in January, they couldn't use quarter 1 packet.
Correct. So during parent-teacher conferences, we would send home the quarter 2 packet. And so let's say we had 5 snow days in November, which we hope doesn't happen. And then if there was another one in December, then they would be utilizing that quarter 2 packet. And then when we send home second quarter grade cards, and the quarter 2 packet would complement that. So we will try to stay ahead of any inclement weather or snow days that we might have.
And of course, we can tell them that they'd like to do it for fun, they can still do it anyway, right?
Anytime.
Correct, yes.
I admire your hope. I'm pretty sure we're going to have some snow. In your research, if you did,
Trying to get my mic on, sorry. In your research, if you did, I have not found any other district that does this type of method, that at 5 days we initiate the AMI. Did you notice that this is practiced elsewhere?
So we looked at all of the surrounding districts, or at least the districts that we touch, and we looked at if they are doing synchronous work or asynchronous work and what the time expectations are for elementary levels and then secondary levels. And so we have drafted a plan, and the majority of, at least the elementary, might be 30 minutes of instruction of math, ELA, and then maybe science or social studies. For the secondary level, it's going to be 20-minute blocks, correct? 20-minute blocks, and that is very comparable to what the surrounding districts do. So we did solicit feedback from all of the districts that we touched. We got feedback from the majority of them, but they are kind of all over the place. I feel like our plan is probably in the middle and is going to best serve our students and staff.
Thank you.
And this might be a question for technology too, but it mentions Chromebooks, obviously, for secondary, I'm assuming, so that would be middle school and high school. Currently, we don't send the Chromebooks home with middle schoolers, and to our benefit, because we've saved lots of money in repairs for those Chromebooks. What would be the plan for middle school students then? Because we can't predict when snow's going to hit.
That's correct. So the plan is to send them home with Chromebooks. So they start their day in homeroom, and then they end their day in homeroom, and that's when they turn in their Chromebooks at the end of the day. So if we're seeing that inclement weather is ahead, we're actually going to be preparing lessons, homeroom lessons that equip not only the staff but the students with what it's going to look like if we see inclement weather is ahead.
Okay, so we'll just hope that we know ahead of time and send it. Okay.
Yes.
Could someone refresh me on how many AMI days the state allows? 5. Thank you.
Yeah, and then I think they extended it this year and allowed us 6. So the standard is 5. Maybe I missed this, but did it say that
Yes, they would be. The teachers would be able to post them or share them electronically through Parent Square, but they would have paper copies, but then would also be accessible online.
I know, I as a parent lose every paper. Especially if I'm expected to have it 2 months after they gave it to me. I love the option because, so that way we're reaching everyone. There was another question I had, and I think you touched on this a little, the expectations for teachers. Obviously that is going to be different at the different levels. And did you say 20 minutes for the high school level?
That's being drafted right now. We definitely want to get feedback from the teachers on that, and we will work with the organizations. We don't want to pull them in July to get their feedback, and so luckily we do have a little bit of a runway before we have 5 days of inclement weather, so that is something that we will partner with them on in September, October to make sure that we are treating all certificated staff fairly in terms of what the expectations are going to be for their AMI instruction.
And I appreciate that because what we need to submit to the state should be pretty broad, and that way we can adapt and adjust as needed as we go through the school year and maybe figure out that whatever we had in mind works so well.
And I'm sorry, I think it might be an omission, but I see that Parent Square isn't included on the platform. Is that something that we want to add? Because I know that we use that for lots of communications as well.
I believe it's on number 3. How will the LEA communicate implementation of AMI days to students? It's on the one-pager.
Okay, well, I'm looking at number 11.
11.
It's not there.
For instructional platforms,
okay.
Parent Square isn't an instructional
yes.
platform.
Thank you. Okay.
Director Proente brought up another question for me in my mind. On the packets, will parents have the ability to choose whether they want to take the packet or get it online? Because I'm just thinking of all the paper that we could save if a parent said, no, I will do it online, I don't want a packet.
I think at the elementary level, we just envisioned that being part of the parent-teacher conferences that we have at the end of first quarter. Unfortunately, we do give them lots of paperwork during those conferences, but the plan just to provide consistency to all of our elementary students would be to provide them a paper packet, but also make it accessible online during those AMI days.
I imagine if a parent said, please do not give me a packet, then maybe is it still wasted, I guess is what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I was just trying
see.
to get to
I
the less
understand your point,
paper.
yeah.
I mean, don't those students do that work on paper? So ultimately, that's what they would be turning in is the paper, so.
That's true, they'd have to print it or we have to print it, so that makes sense.
There's not an electronic submission?
For elementary school?
So for the elementary, the way that they're going to get credit for attendance is if they participate synchronously, which is going to be, it could be a challenge for some because we're not sending Chromebooks home with them. They would have to utilize their parent's device or if they have their own electronic device at home. And so in order for them to get credit for attendance, it will need to be that paper-based packet when they return to school the next attendance day that shows that they did the assignment for that day.
Okay, so we are going to be voting on this in our open session. So I feel like if you guys think of any more questions, we can ask them during our discussion then. Will you guys be prepared just in case? Okay. I think we're going to go ahead and adjourn, and then we'll open up our next meeting. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
And then we're going to do a roll call, Ms. Smith. Yes.
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 Motion carries. We're adjourned.